Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the podcast Strikes Back. My name is George and you're listening to the weekly movie show with the boys Connor.
Hello.
And Ben.
Hi there. Hi, hello.
I got a criticism last time of not being energetic enough, so I
What
thought
were you yawning
I
last
yawned
time?
last time as an intro.
Why'd you stop the intro whilst I was yawning, George? Come on, mate. Sort your
see,
life out.
I've made up for it. I've come with a new energy.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I can't promise it'll be sustained, but
Okay.
at least I started out
Come
well.
on, an hour. That's all we ask for. Out of your whole week.
I'll give you 15 minutes and we'll see how we go from there.
Well, listen, guys, we got a great show for you this week. Black Widow is only about 2 months away, and we have a trailer, a brand new trailer, lots to talk about there. Also got more behind-the-scenes stuff dropping with Batman. I'm really excited about this movie. Can't wait to be talking about that later. Question of the week. And you might also notice that we have a brand new number at the beginning of the episode. Isn't this crazy? Isn't this wild? We're actually conforming to the format of podcasts after almost 3 years. It's taken us a while to figure it all out, guys.
We've been bought by Disney and they forced a new format on us.
Yeah, bear with us. But yeah, Connor mentioned at the beginning of the year we had a few changes coming through, and one of them is we're going to be numbering the episodes, and we're also going to be consolidating trailer time. So getting rid of trailer time and just making it all about the overall news. So Connor, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
It was literally about streamlining a little bit, kind of taking all the content that people are actually interested in and just kind of, bringing it to the forefront.
Marvel news.
The Marvel news, essentially. Yeah.
A little inside baseball
No
for
one
you.
cares
That's all
about the
anyone
other
cares about.
trailers.
Well, and that's the challenge. Like, it was always cool that we did have those quirky trailers because there's so many films that we don't normally hear about, or you don't hear about or see in the mainstream news. So it's cool to have those. But for you guys at home listening, all these sort of esoteric trailers where we're not really explaining the plot properly. I just always felt that it never quite, by focusing more on the main stories, everyone's across what's going on.
And of course, as always, if anyone has any suggestions on how we can improve the show, or if you miss trailer time or anything like that, give us a shout. We're always open to very nice criticisms.
Yes, very nice place.
Yeah.
We're fragile.
But yeah.
Fantastic. Well, as we like to do before we get into all the Marvel-y stuff, let's catch up on what everyone's been watching. I haven't watched anything this week, so Connor, why don't you jump into it?
Yeah, of course. So 2 series that I watched this week. One of them, I'm like 1 episode off finishing, and the other one I'm a couple episodes off finishing. The first is Rami. I was recommended this by someone that I actually work with, specifically because he's Egyptian, and my fiance is Egyptian, and he's like, okay, well, you have to go and watch this. And turned out it was an A24 produced series about a guy named Rami Youssef, who also produced the series. And it's basically his I guess kind of experiences as being an Egyptian Muslim that was born and raised in America. And it's just 10 episodes. I think it's streaming on Hulu, but you can in Australia you can get it on Stan. I think it's a really fascinating series. It shows his struggles with being adherent to his culture, to his religion, to his that kind of side of his identity, while also trying to fit in and kind of be a modern American as well.
I'm sensing dramedy.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's in that kind of area.
Yeah.
But it also, what I also liked about it was that it kind of, it delved into the perspectives of some of the people around him as well, like his family, and kind of gave, it was one of those series that kind of gave multiple perspectives on a single situation. So, character X is a bigot, but why does he have this kind of view? All the characters seemed very multidimensional, which is nice.
And
so
produced
by a bunch of people, but one of them was A24
and shot in America.
Yeah, shot in America. It's originally aired on Hulu,
Cool.
but you can get it on Stan. I think they call it a Stan exclusive. I'm not entirely sure what constitutes a Stan exclusive or anything like
Just
that.
when they buy the distribution rights.
Yeah, I'm assuming just for Australia,
Mm.
because I'm pretty sure you'd still be able to get Rami on Hulu. So I watched that, and I also so I think I'm one off finishing that, and I also watched Castlevania season 3.
I heard good things about this.
Yeah, I'm not an anime purist. I don't really have much to compare it to. But this is certainly one of the more accessible animes that I've come across. And so I've followed it for the last 2 seasons, and spoiler alert, in the second season, they end off killing one of the major antagonists of the series. And so that kind of leaves this series with a very open-ended, okay, well, what now, right? And they kind of had this task of bringing a lot of the secondary antagonists to the forefront. And that I thought was a really interesting prospect. In terms of execution, I think they've done a pretty good job of it. They've the story is a little less, I would say, linear now. There's kind of offshoots, so you're following a couple of different characters on their journeys, and it's a little less, bad guy versus good guy type scenario. Not to say that the first 2 seasons were strictly that, but they're doing a good job of kind of diversifying the story. It does, however, I guess in my opinion, suffer a little bit of what that of the Game of Thrones suffered from, which is there's multiple storylines happening at once, which means that if you look at any one storyline in the context of 8 episodes, not an awful lot happens. So as you kind of diversify in terms of storylines, you kind of you get a reduction in what happens linearly. That's a word, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I think I'm 2 or 3 episodes off finishing that, and so far really enjoying it. Visually, I'm
Is
really
there an
digging the
improvement
style.
in the artwork?
Like I said, I'm not an anime purist, so I'm not the person to be really asking about that. I remember, I think, Ben, when you originally saw a bit of it, or even just the trailers of it, you were a bit kind of, it's not true Japanese anime, so I think
Don't make me sound like a fucking
I know.
neckbeard piece
I
of
didn't
shit.
want to. I didn't want to come on too strong, but
my thing was in stills.
Yeah.
It was really gorgeous, surprisingly well done for something that's not Japanese. When you see it in motion, it's clearly not from a Japanese studio.
and there's legitimately that's warranted essentially, because the Japanese
There's an expectation.
animation, like they've built up a reputation, and they've been doing it for
It's just out of their
many years.
wheelhouse. It's sort of this,
But I like it. I like how the not in a negative way, but they're appropriating other different styles.
Yeah, no, it's
and
very
bringing
cool.
that in and opening that up as a medium.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think this for a lot of people would be a good stepping stone into a back catalog of traditionally Japanese animes.
for sure.
That
For
I really appreciate that kind of thing. So, but so far really really digging it. I don't think it'll change by
Sure.
next 2 weeks. So if it takes a serious dip, I'll let you know. Otherwise, just consider it a recommend.
Nice. Have you been watching Castlevania, Benny?
I have not, nor did I watch any real anime this week.
I didn't mean to make you sound
He
like a
says with
dick.
his monocle.
I've been obsessed with one thing in particular, and I'll make it brief because I know you guys ain't going to give a shit. But I started off the week listening again and again to the full soundtrack for Tim Burton's Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street. And then finally one night slapped it on. I haven't watched it in probably a decade. And I just fucking love that movie. It's even better than I remembered, and then proceeded for the rest of the week to listen to it again, probably another dozen times.
My ex-girlfriend's family was so into musicals, and they would watch the Tony Awards, and they would go to all the shows that came. When Wicked came through, they were losing their fucking marbles. And
What a bad matchup for you.
dude, it was.
Why didn't that relationship last?
But Sweeney Todd was one that they showed me things, and I'm like, listen, come on.
You sweet people. It's not going to happen.
Leave me be. Leave me alone. And Sweeney Todd was one that I actually really enjoyed.
Cool.
And I thought the songs were great.
What was the critical reception for that when it came out? Like, what?
Good.
What
Quite great.
Yeah?
Good.
Yeah, and that was
Yeah.
a Tim Burton on a, he was still considered, it was pre Alice in Wonderland. Tim Burton essentially is what I'm
Yeah,
trying
I mean,
to say.
he had done, of course, Planet of the Apes at that point, but yeah, he hadn't become kind of the just sort of almost laughing stock he is now,
Yeah.
which is a real shame because he was one of the first directors I ever fell in love with, and I think looking back through his catalog, there's a lot of great stuff there.
100%.
But
It's
this movie,
such a distinctive style. Like it's
this movie in particular is just fucking gorgeous, and the actual musical itself by Stephen Sondheim. Is virtually an opera. The way it's written lyrically and musically is so complex and really impressive. And I can see why, George, it would be one that you would be more open to than other.
It's a bit more metal.
It's a little more metal. It's a little less tacky. It's kind of horror themed.
Yeah.
I think I'll be watching it again pretty soon already.
Cool.
Yeah. I watched a great video from a YouTuber I just introduced you guys to, Sideways, I think his name is. He does kind of musical analysis. His video on Sweeney Todd is so well worth watching,
Okay,
even for you guys if you haven't seen it.
I like this other one you linked us.
Yeah, just because it's
such a niche area.
But this one in particular, there's a recurring motif or leitmotif in Sweeney Todd, the Des Irae or something. It's like a centuries old like death theme of music that comes into play in so many more movies than you would ever guess. Like it's in Star Wars, it's in The Shining. It's just this thing that musicians all seem to know and utilize in film scores in particular. Really fascinating stuff. So that was me for the week. Just pretty much all Sweeney Todd.
Wow.
I'm surprised he didn't come with changed hairstyle.
It's a
and
left field.
Slightly
It's
less
great.
tan.
It's fantastic. Awesome stuff. Should we get into the topics of the week?
Let's friggin' do it. First up, we have a new and presumably final trailer for Black Widow.
It does say final trailer.
There we
I
go.
think so.
I presumed
Hopefully this is the
correctly.
last one. Yeah. This is so can you guys give me a bit of a gauge on how you're feeling about Black Widow coming into it? Like, do you feel as though there's the same level of excitement that you usually have for a Marvel film? Like, I just don't know where I feel. Like, it's very
different.
strange.
It's different, and it feels like a different movie for them. It feels almost like a different genre for them in some regard. I'm low-key really keen for this movie, though, which normally with Marvel, I'm like high-key very keen.
Yeah.
So it is different, but I don't know. Everything I've seen of this, I've quite liked.
Number one, I love that you said low key. Number two, listen, I'm starting to worry about this one.
Oh, no.
I'm starting to feel like this is an Ant-Man and the Wasp because this one really didn't impress me. The music was great. Music across the board, across all these trailers for Black
It's been
Widow
fantastic.
we've got this really cool industrial edge with these interesting syncopated patterns and
I
stuff.
sincerely doubt it's indicative of the final product, but I really hope it is.
Awesome stuff. But this movie, I don't know, man. I was thinking, the first thought that came to me in this trailer, I think she was on a bridge or something. She's about to fight Taskmaster. And I thought to myself, man, this should have came out 2015 or something.
Well, and that's been something that we've been saying since 2015, is that this is a phase 1 film. And this is, I thought, when all the fans wanted it, which was, again, early phase 1 type area. Maybe early phase 2, sorry. And it does, it feels like it belongs in that era. And not in the kind of callback way that I sort of hoped that it would, more in the sense of just it doesn't feel like it belongs in a world post Avengers and even just Spider-Man. I feel like the general movement of the MCU is going more space galactic cosmic kind of I'm really excited for where they're going to take Eternals and Doctor Strange and the multiverse of madness or whatever it is. Even the Disney Plus series seems a little bit more wacky and kind of out there. So I don't know, this one just doesn't quite feel like it fits. Having said that, the trailers didn't disappoint me. Like, that's why I'm not sure where I feel. Like, I don't think this movie is going to be bad. I just don't think it really fits with the overall direction of the MCU. That's the only kind of, I guess, concern that I have.
I don't think Marvel's capable of making a bad movie at this point.
But
don't jinx it.
There's
it'll happen. But.
Every chance to me, like 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna leave the film and be like, "That was a great time." But the one time is the Ant-Man and the Wasps that come through. You liked Ant-Man and the Wasp the most out of us three? Would you say?
Yeah.
You were kind of in my camp.
Yeah, I wasn't I wasn't wildly impressed, and I came to it, well after it had left theaters.
Right.
It just felt like one of those movies that was put in there to fill a necessary gap, and that the story around that plot point wasn't really well thought out, or not even just well thought out, but it just didn't feel well executed. And maybe that's because that they were kind of handcuffed to this, Feige going in and be like, these are the points that you have to make in order for Avengers to make sense, or something like that. I can imagine that having something to do with the situation, but I was very lackluster on that film. It just felt very kind of necessary.
Well, that's my stomach going.
It's concerning if they can hear that through the mics.
Listen, it's coming out April 30th, I believe. We're less than 2 months away. Let's see. First MCU film of 2020.
This trailer is clearly setting up Florence Pugh as the new Black Widow. It's a lot more kind of centric on her.
Is that the sister?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised she's gone with that accent for this film, because they never bothered with Scarlett.
It's quite jarring in this instance where Scarlett Johansson is so American, I feel.
And I honestly, I love Florence Pugh. I think everything she's done has been so good. I'm honestly not super convinced by her in this either.
It didn't really bother me because it made sense. Black Widow had gone over to America and kind of put that in her past, whereas her sister seems as though she had lived in Russia.
The performance specifically.
The actual execution of the accent. Yeah. I get that. I'm just going to kind of reserve too much judgment because, accents are real 50-50 for me, right? Sometimes they really bring me out, but other times it's kind of like,
it's a sore point for you because Australians think you sound weird and Canadians think you sound weird.
No one thinks I sound like how I should.
Irish people do. Like, Connor.
I do.
You're
I get
people
mate. That I have known for years be like, you just kind of like casually talk about how I'm Irish. I'm like, I'm not Irish though. And they're like, what? No, it's not possible. I'm like, have you spoken to me? Like, have I ever mentioned like the home country of Ireland? Like,
you just exude it.
Yeah, the name doesn't help. No, one thing I did want to talk about with this trailer was Taskmaster.
I think Taskmaster looks awesome.
He looks awesome,
Looks
but
like a Power
also
Ranger enemy.
something that I hadn't.
Yeah, that's awesome.
My understanding of Taskmaster was that he kind of analyzed situations and was able to kind of fight based on, I think that's kind of my understanding of.
He has photographic reflexes, so anything he sees performed, he can mimic. Yeah.
So that makes sense because in this trailer, it looks as though he's mimicking all the Avengers. So he's got the shield from Captain America. He's got the bow from Hawkeye. He's got Panther's claws.
Yeah.
I think there was at least one more. The one that I wasn't quite sure about where he was mimicking was the sword. When he's falling down, he's got like a sword.
It'll be interesting to see how much exposition or time they give to that. Whether they just get present it and happens, or they give it a whole backstory.
No, I think they're just going to run with a gimmick, right? It's going to be one line.
I hope they do.
It's going to be like, hey, this is a guy that, this is his thing. He can, basically what you just did, he can mimic everything. And then, there's not
but I wonder
really
if
going to
they'll
be
get into the tech and how it from
I hope because it's such a fun comic booky conceit.
I think it's great.
He can just do this. I hope
this is the thing that he does. I mean, in a world where Thor swings around a hammer, he can do that.
I think he looks sick. I think this looks like a really good Marvel villain, which, they've been hit and miss. I've been assuming Rachel Weisz is Taskmaster this entire time. This trailer kind of gave me pause, so I'm not entirely sure. But that's
interesting.
The law of conservation of characters, it's got to be someone who we've already seen in the trailer or who we know is cast in this, because it's a masked character.
Yeah.
They're not going to introduce some other random probably. So maybe it's Florence Pugh even. Maybe the whole...
Is it in the comic books, or are you aware of...
It's a guy. It's just Taskmaster. It's not like a twist or anything.
But you think...
But the way that the MCU uses villains, I'm presuming they're going to do something.
Mandarin on his ass.
And even if it isn't one of the existing characters, I did kind of assume it would be a woman because, this being one of the very few female-led properties, I figured they might do that flip.
Shit, dude, I think you might be onto something there.
I often am.
Steak
interesting.
No.
This is exactly what Steak Dinner is designed for. This is
Look, what are we 4 years into this? No one's gotten a steak yet?
Yeah, holy fuck. The steaks cancel each other.
It's happened enough times. I think you might be up, George, if I'm just going off memory in terms of the steaks.
We have gone so long here that I still haven't gotten a steak, and I'm a vegetarian now. So you guys are going to have to figure something else out.
I'm not going to get into this.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up, Vin Diesel, of all people, has let slip that the Guardians of the Galaxy will appear in Thor, Love and Thunder. So that makes a lot of sense given where we saw Thor last.
Yeah. Not surprising.
Yeah, in Endgame. I think that's kind of a fun little continuity thing. I'm assuming it's going to be a little more than a cameo. The same with Doctor Strange in Ragnarok. He had a few minutes in that film, even though it was kind of hyped up.
That kind of disappoints me for much the same reason that I had kind of expressed when they first, kind of announced the slate of properties that they were going to do next. Because I think everyone's initial thought was that the next movie that we'll get in that kind of timeline or in that kind of story area was going to be Guardians of the Galaxy. What's the title?
As Guardians of the Galaxy.
As Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought that was going to be like the next thing, and then past that you could have like Thor 4. Whereas this one, it kind of sounds as though they're just abandoning that idea and going straight to Thor 4.
So you're upset that they're doing something you thought was going to happen based on no evidence, and they went another way.
Well, they kind of set it up for it, right? Like, what's the point of
there was a
having
setup? I'm glad they're not doing that, though, because I think those are, at that point, or this point, I think those are two of their most popular properties. The ones that they're actually going forward with is Guardians and Thor after Ragnarok. Yeah. And I think they're both so chock full in their own right that they do not need to be mashed together. Because we're about to discuss this in even more detail, but this next Thor sounds so full already. We've got Natalie Portman coming in as a new Thor. We've got Valkyrie coming back. We've got Thor, who has a lot of shit to work out after Endgame, obviously. And then you've got the Guardians, who were like their time, their story, their continuity, I think, was fucking railroaded by Endgame. They have so much rebuilding to do and so much to fix that the fact that we're not getting their movie before they're appearing in this already is a damn shame. Marvel really fucked that up by firing James Gunn and delaying the movie and rehire him. Because they're kind of in tatters right now.
And you also got to take into account Taika Waititi. I want to see Taika Waititi get involved with the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's going to be awesome. Whether it's 3 minutes, whether it's 20 minutes. I think, I've been a little bit iffy on James Gunn coming back, and I'm not really sure where I sit on Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yeah, I don't love it.
But I think there's still mileage there with the right creative personnel. So, good shit on the way, but we got some more news about some villains.
Yeah, so these actors cannot keep their lips sealed. Tessa Thompson.
Tessa Thompson. Was that a red carpet premiere or something?
Just talking to ET, I think.
Okay. Just on the street.
Yeah, she let slip that Christian Bale is in fact joining the film, as we heard rumored, and he'll be playing the villain.
How good.
So that's a great get.
I can't wait.
What a very talented actor, and depending on what direction they go with it, he's so talented comedically, and I think he could do great things with Taika Waititi.
Do you think he's going to change his physique?
I think he's done. I've heard he's done with that.
Yeah, but is he?
It's a lot of effort. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's part of his DNA.
I'd heard an anecdote just today, apparently, that he talked to Gary Oldman. I think who did Winston Churchill in that movie a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, geez, how'd you get into that shape?" And he's like, "It was a fat suit." And he was like, "Oh, fuck, you can just do that."
Well, I mean, that's the same thing with
Christian.
I don't think he can keep doing that. I think the toll it takes on your body is too much. Now, I suppose you guys don't have any thoughts on who he might be playing. No offense.
No idea.
But
Thor?
Thor. He's playing another new Thor. He's playing Frog Thor. That's an actual thing. Look it up.
Isn't there a horse Thor as well?
There's Beta Ray Bill, who is an alien. So he was Thor for a while. He has a weird kind of horse head.
Sweet.
He's definitely appearing in this movie. So that could be Christian Bale. So, yes, well done. Because
for years. Because he was in a
fan
Guardians of the
favorite. There was a
Galaxy,
statue in
Guardians 1, right?
No, in
there was a
Thor
statue in
3.
Thor Ragnarok.
That's the only. All right, let's be clear. That's the only reason I know about that character, and because you specifically pointed him out to me.
Right.
That's my only.
So it was my
make him a better
suggestion.
person.
Yeah. So ipso facto.
But my pick is a character I actually don't know all that much about called Gore the God Butcher, Gorr. Look him up.
Yeah,
'cause
I'm doing that right
he
now.
He is the star of some of the most striking mainstream comic book art I've seen in years. I don't know what the Thor run is exactly, this kind of God Butcher storyline, but he's a wicked looking character. He's kind of got a
Fuck.
Voldemort style to him, and I think
Yeah.
Christian Bale could embody that
No
perfectly.
Yeah, he looks great.
Yeah, isn't that art like gorgeous?
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
Yeah, but that is a really kind of serious storyline, and the way that Taika Waititi handled Thor 3, I was not super happy with in some aspects, because that was on paper a very Ragnarok was on paper as a very dramatic event, whereas this looks like another kind of like 80s wacky thing. So at this point I don't even know what I want from a Thor movie, but all the ingredients are very exciting.
100%.
Yeah.
Cannot wait for this one.
We'll see what they
Is that
do.
this year?
Thor, no, the end of this year is Eternals.
Eternals.
Thor
we
must
only
be
have
one of the ones
two?
next year. Yeah, because Guardians got delayed. That was meant to be this year.
Oh, but we got a lot of Disney Plus.
So they really slowed their roll there.
Yeah. Disney Plus is really filling it up
Yeah, for sure.
through the middle.
Have you cancelled it yet,
Are
Josh?
those being?
Yeah, I did. I cancelled it.
Did you watch the next?
Foxtel Go.
Did you watch the next Clone Wars?
No.
Yeah, you said you were going to do that.
No.
But I've still got enough time. It's the cycles on the 26th or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then see ya.
I would be really fascinated to know what the attrition rate for Disney Plus has been over the last 2 months, because they were very keen on publishing how quickly they went up. Obviously there's some.
I think they have a big churn rate
Yeah.
with their subscribers.
I
I'm
think
sure there would be, and I'm sure there'd also still be a lot of people who, like us, even just let
Forget
it hang
how-
on in the background because.
something a bit of a tangent, but I was watching a round table with a bunch of the producers of the major studios like Paramount and Netflix and Amazon and all that kind of stuff. And the head of Amazon or the head of Netflix was asked a pretty direct question about why they don't release stats. And if you want the full answer, like check, I think it's a Hollywood Reporter does a round table with them. But one of the interesting things is that they said that they're going to start releasing more and more stats, and I am really fascinated to find out or to kind of delve into that, because I've always thought that box office viewership box office like dollar amounts is such a bad measure of
Most
how
definitely.
popular a movie is.
Netflix is going to be worse though. It's going to be their bullshit cherry picks. Do you remember their like 10 most watched
2
things last year or
seconds.
something? It's like if you've watched 2 minutes of it, it goes onto that.
But I
onto
find that almost
list.
better, because if you're comparing a movie now to a movie like 5 years ago, like for like, the movie theater, like the amount of distribution is different. The price of a ticket is different. Like whether it's 3D versus like I've always
And records don't take inflation into account
Exactly,
at all,
right.
Which
And I
is,
mean-
it makes it all completely kind of pointless.
Yeah. And, one of my most hated statistics that's always quoted is about how Gone with the Wind is, if you account for inflation, is so much more popular than any of these movies nowadays. I'm like, but that's like such a small fraction of what made it popular. Like what, 3 movies come out that year?
Well, it was in cinemas for like 4
exactly.
years.
Sorry?
It was in cinemas for like
Yeah,
4 years.
exactly. Like it's that if you took that movie and you release it now, like there's just no kind of comparison on that. So I like the idea of just saying like, kind of looking at something that is statistic heavy on something more than just dollar amount, on actual viewership. And down the line, if they start releasing not only just how many people quote unquote viewed this, but also like what was their retention rate on this movie, what was their
Did they say they were going to get that deep into it?
I don't know if they're going to get that deep.
Because I feel like it's just going to be their usual
way.
kind of
But
propaganda.
In the back
he
end
has,
they
he
will,
has
but-
said that they've started to release a little bit, but they will start to release more and more as time goes on. And I watched it would have had to have been at least a week ago, so I can't remember the specifics around why they didn't release why they traditionally didn't release it. It was something that I hadn't thought about. I was just like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But because of the changing environment, because of the changing industry, they're going to start releasing more and more. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point you're able to get those kind of statistics. I don't know whether it would be open to the public, but I imagine they'd release it
So
somehow.
powerful for Netflix.
Sorry?
So powerful for Netflix.
I mean, yeah, exactly, right? Like
The
A lot of
analytics they
company-
can
yeah.
pull and the
It's
insights they
huge.
can pull is insane. I watched director Guy Ritchie on Joe Rogan this week. I think it was from 2 years ago or something. Really
They
great
talk about
podcast.
suits.
Talks about suits a lot, empowerment
boy.
of a suit. But he has some interesting thoughts in this exact area, and was commenting about how that metric of box office is they reference Fast and the Furious. It's like everyone's just talking about box office haul. What about the merits of the film itself?
Okay.
Is this Guy Ritchie saying this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soon after he released King Arthur? Was that?
No, but it
Money
actually
doesn't
gave
matter.
Me, it gave me a lot of respect for the guy. So I
That
just
is
blank
funny.
out King Arthur and everything's fine.
The man who directed the biggest box office bomb of all time. Anyway, this is week 3 or 4 of consistent The Batman news,
Yeah, man.
which I'm really enjoying this trickle.
I think it's going to ramp up as we get closer and closer. Like, I think
and
this
it's
is gonna be real.
been it's been their content as well as
Leaks
content
and
for
stuff.
photographers. The
So
paparazzo.
we've gotten a look at the Batmobile, a pretty good look. A bunch of new photos are up. It's distinctive.
It's looking old school,
So it makes me kind of
mechanical.
well it
Practical.
fits in with the bike.
Yeah, exactly.
And my comment
This-
around the bike was that it was really scaled back and very, it kind of looked like a, someone panel beat some shit over the front. And that was
This
it.
guy doesn't really look like a billionaire at this point.
No,
which
it
is
looks
really
like
interesting.
kind of like an
love
old
it.
Because
style
everything about
muscle
his
car.
suit and his vehicles
Cobbled
is
together.
and very practical. This doesn't feel like he has Morgan Freeman in his basement with $1 billion making military grade equipment for him, which I think is really interesting. And as for the look of the car itself, yeah, like you said, it's like a muscle car kind of mixed with a sports car. It looks wicked.
Looks so analog. It looks visceral.
It's also probably
tactile.
the first kind of practical looking Batmobile since the 60s.
Oh yeah, Adam West's Batmobile was like, I want to drive around in that.
Yeah,
thing.
it doesn't look
But
tech-based.
compared to the 25-foot long Tim Burton thing that literally
Yeah.
had a grappling hook so it could turn corners, and then the fucking tanks that Ben Affleck and Christian Bale drove around in.
I quite like the Dark Knight,
The Tumbler.
the Tumbler.
Mm.
I'm
Very tech and real.
Yeah, and I liked the design of it, and I really liked the design of the bike.
The Batpod, yeah.
From
I don't
those
dislike the
films.
Tumbler, but it is a tank. And it's funny that he chose to go in that direction for his really kind of grounded take on Batman. When he's like flying across roofs and has the entire police force chasing him and he gets away somehow.
It's so good.
I don't know if I like.
I
would
love
you,
that shit, man.
Yeah.
They've got the spotlight, and he just literally just breaks a little bit, and it goes into the night. And
Might
it's
be
like,
paid
where's
for
he
all those
gone?
buildings.
We just moved the spotlight a little bit, dude.
I can just hear the music now, of, like that chase.
Yeah,
scene.
it's
just
good
like
shit,
fucking-
man. It's good shit.
Hmm.
I think this is a really interesting way to go, and it's starting to inform more and more of the picture that Matt Reeves is bringing to the table. And this younger Batman, what is year 1, right? Or
Year
the Long
2,
Halloween?
Apparently.
Year 2, okay.
Yeah,
So,
the Long Halloween looks to be what they're adapting.
yeah, I mean, this is the stuff I'm really hungry to see.
Hmm.
We saw that maybe in The Dark Knight. Maybe you could sort of say that he was in his second year as Batman there. But this, I don't know, it's just honed in a little bit more and make that the clear focus. I can't wait for this, man.
Quick question.
2021, right?
Sure.
2021.
It would have to be.
I hope so.
Filming now. Quick question for you. What's your favorite Batmobile?
Might be the Tumbler.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as distinctive as your Tim Burton, like with the big or like the ones with a big wing. Was that the Burton one that had the big wing in the back?
That would be Schumacher.
Or maybe Schumacher's
or
one is what I'm thinking.
The
of.
biggest wing, certainly, with Schumacher. I had the toy of, I think, the Batman Forever one, which that was a fucking
What are the?
sick
Can we say the
looking vehicle.
animated one? Animated one was pretty badass.
Yeah, well,
Very
yeah.
Tim Burton.
yeah. That the kind of 90s animated series. Because that's probably what I was going to say is that crossed with the Tim Burton original. Really cool kind of Art Deco
the
car.
Batfleck pod.
Yeah, not the Batfleck thing. No, I don't
What
know
was
that one
that?
actually.
A shark?
Sorry?
Bat shark.
I don't know. It was the Bat Slaughtermobile
Yeah.
because he killed a lot of people with
Yeah,
it.
but it was high body count.
It would look pretty cool if he picked all
we,
the people
like,
out of the grill at the front.
I've always been annoyed by that. Like people were, I can't believe he like killed people because something blew up. It's like the amount of people that all the other Batmans have actually killed, if nothing else, but through like just breaking necks and like severe brain trauma and like.
No, I mean the Keaton
I'm a
Batman,
good guy because I've only given 60 people brain damage.
The Keaton Batman like fucking openly killed people. He like stuck dynamite to a guy and threw him over a fucking side of a building.
What a hero.
But watching that, very like serious, heady Batman v Superman and seeing the way he was pulverizing those cars with people in them was kind of distressing.
Yeah, just because you couldn't see like literally him killing people. He was like, oh, we got away on a technicality.
Just having a bad time, man. That's all.
Yeah, speaking of having a bad time, after careful consideration and thorough evaluation of the global theatrical marketplace, coronavirus, No Time to Die has been delayed until November.
7 months?
Huge, yeah.
Wow.
That is such an interesting.
So Coachella has been
move.
moved by 6 months.
South by Southwest, the greatest film festival in the world, has been cancelled.
Slipknot Fest got cancelled
No!
in Japan. The world is imploding, people.
Yeah, this is big.
And like today at work, I my boss said, don't come in. We work on a co-working office. Coronavirus is taking hold.
As we know, I work in a cinema, and this would be a quiet period one way or another. But it seems like a place people are avoiding, certainly. 'Cause they're all
That's
busy.
not
What about that
surprising.
dude? What about that patron today that coughed in your face? Why don't you tell everyone at home?
No, he said he didn't have coronavirus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No,
So we're
I
good.
made sure to ask. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said did.
No, I think he said
Okay,
did. I
sweet.
think he said didn't.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I interrupted
I
you.
feel
there,
like that's a
Connor.
whole different conversation. What was I going to say? My question is this the first, is this the last one that we're going to hear about changing dates?
So apparently Black Widow seems very firm on sticking to its date. Fast and Furious 9 as well, which is, I would say, more surprising because I would expect them to have much bigger markets in China, both of them, than James Bond. But the reasoning, according to Deadline, the reasoning was really weird. They said it's not due to coronavirus. They just want the global, theater market to be operating at peak capacity. I'm like, that's because of the coronavirus. Because a lot of the markets in the world are kind of shut down right now.
See, I don't even know, like, one of the things that makes me very weirded out, I guess, about this is that, okay, well, they've obviously spent a shit ton of money in marketing already that they're going to have to double down on in 6 months.
I've heard 30 million is what they're going to lose because of this delay.
Because of the marketing alone, or just
because for delaying the movie.
It. Yeah. Like that's a huge amount of money. And if they're worried about, cinemas operating at peak capacity, if you look at the global economy right now, what did we lose off the Dow Jones? Like 2,000 points today or yesterday, whatever it was. And it doesn't seem like it's going to slow down a lot. If you look at the 2008 crash, you were getting like roll-on effects 6 to 12 to 18 months later. So I don't know what they think they're going to achieve in terms of, cinemas operating at peak capacity 7 months from now. Hell, it could be even worse from 7 months if people have lost their jobs or the economy's gone and tanked. People aren't thinking about, I'm going to go watch that new James Bond movie about
good
extravagance and
just in general. It's a good time of year to release, though.
I guess might be a good excuse for them.
There's
to just
not going to be any Star Wars competition.
But it's
this
interesting,
year.
like the reality of the situation versus the perception of the situation. In this instance, these guys have made a decision on the fact that they think that people aren't going to turn up to the cinema, or the Chinese market is severed off.
Yeah.
And our box office haul isn't going to be as high. That's the perceived reality. But, is the reality, what's the tangible, actual, like if they did release in November versus if they did release in April, and put those two things against each other?
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Yeah.
But what is actually going to be, what would be the difference? And it's just very interesting times in terms of this coronavirus and how it's taking hold in so many different areas that seem unrelated on first inspection.
Well, I suspect that Marvel is holding firm largely because they don't want to run up against what's being released later this year?
The Eternals, their own movie. Yeah.
Their own movie. So A, they wouldn't want to compete, and B, there might even be just continuity errors that would occur if they released it
probably like
too close together. Or
Probably like a game of chicken as well.
Yeah.
Seeing who would pull out first, because everyone's kind of rushed into James Bond's date as well.
Yeah.
But James Bond's sitting happy because they're not going to face too much competition.
They've released in
at
November
that end
before,
of the
right?
year. I have no idea. I don't think James Bond really has a set time of year
Okay,
necessarily.
yeah.
But there's all the stuff we don't know as well. I mean, this is a new director on this franchise. Maybe there is behind the scenes trouble.
Drama.
Even if there isn't, though, hopefully this gives them a lot of time to create a really finished product. Because we see a lot of movies, I would say most movies, where you can highlight at least something in there where you're like, oh, they probably could have spent a little more time on that.
A good example. There was a lot of
they could have rewritten the movie and shot it again if they had another 7 months.
If I think about the first 10 minutes alone, there was a lot of polishing that could have been done on that movie to make it
for Spectre.
For Spectre. Because I just remember I loved the setup of that film of being in
The brick wall thing looked weird, eh?
Oh man, the green screen in that film, it got me off to a bad start. But I love the location. I loved the feel of that. Like, it felt very James Bondy. It was just like the execution of the first 10 minutes just really left me kind of.
Take out 15 minutes. This 2.5 hour runtime sounds ridiculous. This is absurd.
Well, they have
Come on,
to.
it's
They have
James
to
fucking
encompass.
Bond.
Georgie, you can't get through one of these, can
Come
you?
on,
They
dude.
have
No,
to
some
encompass
of them
all
get
the previous like villains
They
and
get
like.
so over bloated, and it's just
Casino Royale, I think, was the longest before this.
yeah. Well, that's a good one, but it definitely has a lot of fat on it.
It has a fourth act.
So that fourth act
Yeah.
sucks.
You think it sucks?
The bit where the underwater bit where he's swimming and it's like, no, the card game's over, bro. I want to go home.
Where's the
I got
casino?
work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I like
No,
that.
bit sucks. Of a really
That's
really
a very
cool
strong
movie.
opinion. I don't think I've ever heard you like express that much
Sucky. It was a sucky
distaste
bit.
for something in Casino Royale.
No, that movie rules, but that's the sucky bit.
There you go.
Oh, well, we'll find out come November.
Speaking of coronavirus,
Sure. Yeah. Oh God. Well, I hope not.
this generation's
The Last of Us is to be adapted into an HBO series with Chernobyl's Craig Mazin on board to co-write and executive produce alongside Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann, who served as the game's creative director. This is kind of awesome news, I think.
Right, so have either of you
Craig
played it?
Mazin.
Yes.
I haven't
played
played it.
Neither have I. I played the first like 20 minutes.
Very
'cause
cinematic, though, I hear.
Everything you've heard about it is completely accurate. It's a masterpiece.
Great to hear Craig Mazin's on this. He, as I've said many times on this, his Chernobyl podcast is great. He's the writer of Chernobyl. The way he thinks about things, I subscribe to that. And from everything that I've heard about Last of Us, damn, this sounds cool. Quite interesting because it's based on Ellen Page, right?
Unofficially, I'm not sure if anyone's ever actually admitted to that. I think she might have even sued them.
Yeah.
It's not based on Ellen Page. There was another video game at the
was
time starring Ellen Page,
Yes.
which she was officially a part of.
Because it was kind of weird to see the kid, and in my mind, I was like, "Oh, that should be Ellen."
I'm pretty sure
Page.
she's called Ellie as well. Yeah, it was kind of a whole thing.
That's right. I remember that.
I mean, the
now.
game it's Hugh Jackman and Ellen Page essentially, as these characters. But the idea of giving Craig Mazin another HBO series is terrific, whatever it is.
Yes.
Then chucking him with this material, which has some kind of similarities to Chernobyl.
What's the premise?
In what it's doing? Well, it's basically just essentially a zombie apocalypse. Except it's those those like mushrooms that take over ants' brains and turn them into like little ant zombies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
That sounds great.
toxoplasmosis.
Sure.
Is that the ant? No, that's rats.
Yeah. I don't
Anyways.
think that's it. But yeah, but it's kind of a very exaggerated based on a real thing. But yeah, the game is amazing. It's one of those ones where it's like, does it need an adaptation? Because it's already a perfect cinematic story that is so enhanced by you actually playing it and kind of living in this world. But yeah, I think the idea of making it a TV series is the right way to go, and having the actual guy who worked on the game there kind of co-producing it with Craig Mazin, I think they're in for a hit here.
I cannot wait for this. That HBO seal of approval, like this is gonna look beautiful.
So that's literally what I was gonna allude to. Like the prospect of taking a game and adapting that into a series or a film is always a bit of a dangerous one. However, this does seem to have some hallmarks of something that could be good. Namely, HBO doesn't fuck around with these kind of series. They're usually pretty on point. I'm very interested to see how this is going to turn out. This is... Because Last of Us 2 has come out or is coming out?
Coming out.
Coming out? Okay.
Well, it's been about 5 years, right? Wow.
Yeah, these games like these take a long time to make. That's a freaking polished game.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you guys think about adaptations of things that are virtually perfect in their own medium?
It's the thing is if it's perfect for its medium, it's like the Watchmen thing, right? It's like you literally Zack Snyder copy pasted that film. It just doesn't have the same level of impact because the original piece was made with the form of graphic novels in mind. The way the story is told is informed by these panels and the illustrations of Dave Gibbons. So
he also seemed to have some fundamental misunderstandings of what that book was actually about as well, though, which I don't think Craig Mazin would in this regard.
Most definitely, but it's always like you always have these hurdles where you've got to make compromises and tweaks and workarounds and problem solving. So you take this perfect thing and it's going to never quite be as good. It's going to be a clone. It's going to be and is that to say that every book adaptation's bad? No, not of course. Like I love the Harry Potter films and I love the books as well.
We're not getting into this.
And so I'm not. That's not the camp I fall in. I just think it's a little bit case by case, and it's often working against it because of the equity and the original piece. And whatnot.
I kind of tend to agree that it is case to case. You have some really good examples.
Doctor Sleep is by all accounts much better than the book.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. Well, I mean, but you're talking about taking something that's fit
already good,
and then adapting it. In that case, it's kind of like a bit different. But looking at Lord of the Rings, it's often kind of extolled as one of the greater pieces of fiction out there, and the movies I think really did it justice and really adapted it in a way that was appropriate for the form. I've got my own qualms with Harry Potter and how that's adapted. But I do think that the tendency with adapting anything is to rely too heavily on the existing IP's popularity and, potentially not maybe being a little bit too fan servicey in kind of bringing over the things that they think that the fans want to see, as opposed to digging deeper for what made that property good in the first place.
Well, maybe that'll help this one, I guess, because I think those are one and the same. I think this game is popular for the very specific reason that it's a fantastic story, well told, with very emotional beats and extremely well-realized characters. So I think that's exactly what they'd be aiming for.
But this is my point. Like, a lot of the original properties have that, but they would take away a certain kind of more superficial or aesthetic aspect of kind of looking at this, saying, oh, this is what the fans of the game will want, and they'll bring in like the mechanics, for example, where that's such like a for a lot of people that's just not why they play the game.
I don't think that necessarily is the case, though. I think most of these video game movies are adapted from things that are mostly iconography and little else. Like if you're talking about Sonic the Hedgehog or fucking Battleship, I know that's a board game, but
yeah, I mean, very good point. I guess I'm thinking about something like Assassin's Creed, which I think has a wealth.
I gotta watch that movie.
I think it's got a wealth of good story in the. I mean, Ubisoft put in so much effort into creating this world, and I think that a lot of people play these games because there is such a cool like lineage and story that it follows, and the movie I felt just played on the mechanics too much.
It was also so wrong-headed from the beginning. So, like, what's everyone's favorite thing about the game? The present-day stuff.
Yeah,
and
exactly,
everyone in the world was like, no.
It's literally I've come
Give us Ezio.
Yeah, exactly. That almost seems too easy, but it would have made a far better movie if they had just gone and told the story of Ezio. Like, it just 100%. They could have made a franchise out of that shit.
Talking about telling the whole story, huh? Segue.
Last week we had the bombshell dropped on us that Darth Sidious Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker was in fact a clone of the original Palpatine.
Oh.
Well, that's been expounded upon now because I think the book has actually come out or people have read it.
Yes.
Apparently, Rey's father was a not quite identical clone of Palpatine as well.
Yeah.
Can this be the last
We hear of this.
thing that I didn't even want, I'll be honest, I didn't even want to talk about this, but can this be the last? Because none of these revelations are adding anything to the overall story. It's not like I was,
It's detracting.
and we talked about this last time. Like, you're not filling in plot holes that make us go, oh, this makes so much more sense now.
I forgive you, movie.
Yeah, you're just swapping out a lack of explanation with a pseudo lack of explanation.
Yeah, I think
Like there's no like
I
I wasn't wondering who Palpatine shacked up with and had a baby with. Like that wasn't.
I was. I really was.
He was a pretty decent looking guy back in the prequels. Let's
it was,
before he got all face melted.
Yeah, but it would have had to have been after that, which was the most fascinating part.
What I mean, they don't say that they don't explicitly say that he's single. I guess I haven't run the numbers.
Evil
but
lords. That's one of the first questions you asked.
yeah,
You taken? But this is really fascinating for me because when I saw Rise of Skywalker, I had a great time. It made number 10 for me in the best of the year last year. You know, I'm really rooting for that. But these revelations have just taken so much of my soul away from me, and I think that these added details, it is the fact of the matter is that okay, so there was a second clone made of Palpatine, and that clone had a kid. So not the Sidious that we saw in Rise of Skywalker. So that Sidious is another clone, correct? That Sidious in Rise of Skywalker is another clone. And there was another clone that had, because he says granddaughter. So there's when he's referencing this other clone, he's sort of saying, "Oh, this other clone was a son of mine." And we saw him, right? We saw the mama and the dad in Rise of Skywalker in that little shack. There was a point where we saw them, right?
Yeah.
So like, and then I start unpacking this too much, and I go, "Don't do it, man." Don't do it, because at the end of the day, when JJ just kind of glazed over it and the Emperor was just there and it was like, hey, he's a bad dude and somehow he willed himself back to reality, that worked a lot better.
Wasn't the biggest problem in the film, yeah. Not to do their work for them, but more as just kind of a thought experiment. I feel like his son clone was probably one of the Boba Fett style clones who was made as a baby and aged at a regular rate. The clone that he is in the movie must be one of the accelerated clones who grows up very fast, because obviously he's like 150 years old or something.
Makes sense.
And presumably all of these clones are born, I guess, with their own mind, their own
Consciousness.
essence, which gets, I guess, deleted when he throws his into it, as he was going to do to Rey at the end of the film. All of this stuff apparently was made up for the movie. Most of it just got cut. So I think they're
filmed. A lot it's in the script.
Yeah, so yeah. I think there is, in as much as there is any logic in any of these movies, but especially this one, I think there was kind of a consistency to it. But it is all dumb and unnecessary, and it's so stupid for this stuff to be coming out now. But novelizations always have these stupid extra details. I think
that it's almost like about expectation handling. It's like, now that we've seen the film and it's all said and done, the fact that he was a clone wasn't really referenced in there. It was more like seemed like a dark, sinister, almost Harry Potter-esque dark magic that willed him back to life.
Yeah.
And then to get this, like, my expectation, I would rather have had all that exposition dump that they cut from the movie to go, oh, he was a clone. Okay, now I've walked out of the cinema immediately. I know he's a clone. But up until 3 months later, or 2 months later, after the film has come out, we're finding out that he's a clone. I mean, this is ridiculous. I think this is terrible. A terrible strategy.
Leave it out of the film. I don't think it adds anything to the film. So why burden the film with that? All this extra stuff.
Sure.
Well, because one of our big complaints coming out of it was there was just no addressing of where Palpatine came from.
Is this addressing of it any better? Like, I think
we could still be complaining about it.
Our complaint was that they did it. I think we were all quite like oh, good. They glazed over it. Like
Mm.
we didn't want them to jump into exposition when I was watching the film, I was like, I really don't need a long-winded explanation of.
Well,
how
that's
he's
the funny
back.
thing though about the cut is it was like one line from Kylo Ren. He was like, "You're a clone," and he's like, "Yeah, baby, I'm a fucking clone."
Yeah, I mean, even that would have worked. But like,
Verbatim.
how I feel about it is that I'm not. I didn't need them to go into this big exposition. I didn't need them to explain anything. And all this stuff that's happened afterwards, like if we look at the alternative script leak from Trevorrow or the novelization giving us, the fact that his son was a clone and that he was a clone and all that kind of stuff, it just doesn't matter to me. I just kind of don't want to talk about it at this point. But like it doesn't really change the film for me. It's just shit afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Like the film wouldn't have been better with the exposition. It wouldn't have been worse.
I
It just
think
would have
it's
been
fence
longer.
sitting.
It would, yeah, it just would have been what it is.
It's a classic case of fence sitting, and they should have committed to one way or the other. And I think in this way, they look stupid.
Yeah, totally.
yeah, it doesn't.
This has all been a clusterfuck for him.
Let's hope we don't hear any more about Palpatine clones next week. That would
Or
be
about
really
Star
great.
Wars ever
Thanks,
again.
Disney. Let's cap it off with question of the week. Our boy Jake Travakis has got in touch. Oh, baby. And if you've
Jake.
got a question, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram. What was that? YouTube,
Like that.
TikTok, Homing Pigeon. Every avenue of communication we accept here. Let's get into this week's question. Run times. What are your opinions? How long is too long for a film? I find most films I want to watch these days are 2 hours or more. It seems harder and harder and harder to find a 90-minute film. I'm not against long films. My girlfriend thought I was crazy for watching The Irishman, but after a long day of work, I'd rather watch a 1 hour episode of TV over a 2.5 hour movie. And I think, Jake, that most people would rather watch 3 hours of TV rather than 2.5 hours of movie. Correct me if I'm wrong, Connor, because every week we start this show with what we've been watching, and it seems like you watch like 18 episodes a week. So
18 episodes of one show and like 34 of another.
Yeah. So obviously this is a man that's, after your heart, George. Because I don't think you like watching anything over an hour.
But I loved The Irishman.
Yeah.
So I think I'm more on the merits of like, what is the vision of the piece, and is it committing to that vision?
Yeah, so there's obviously some movies that feel as though like a good movie feels as though it is exactly as long as it should be. And for example, the last Lord of the Rings film, everyone kind of complains about the 4 endings, and I was like, I fucking love this. I never want this to end. I was like, I was actually every time it came back from black and added another scene, I was just like, fuck yes, this doesn't happen enough in movies. So for me, that movie really felt as long as it should be. So I have absolutely no objection to long films. If I'm digging what's happening on screen, I can make it 4 hours for all I care. In terms of kind of like the question that you spun off on that, which was the people rather watching 3 hour-long episodes as opposed to a 2.5. I think that's just about choice, right? If you commit to a movie, then you are committing to that 2.5 hour, right? Like a movie is meant to be watched beginning to end. If I go to watch, like I don't really ever intend on watching 3 hours of TV, but I like the option that I could if I wanted to, or I could just watch 1 hour. So I think it is like
it's less of a commitment, isn't it?
Yeah, the barrier to entry is significantly lower on or even if you just go like 6 half-an-hour episodes or something. Like it's so much easier to just be like, I'm just going to watch as much as I want, and I can stop at any point or any half-an-hour interval.
Yep.
Well, it's the risk when you're giving your time to something in this world of infinite choice we have right now.
Yeah.
If you want to watch a 20-minute episode of TV, it's like, well, that's fine, that's nothing. But if you're sitting down to watch a 2.5 hour movie, you're like, I'm going to be sitting there for 2.5 hours wondering if I should be watching something else.
But do you know what I have found myself doing lately? Or not even just doing, but I've just kind of experienced this, which is that I appreciate a movie more now that there's this kind of like big content, or this kind of like the constantly filling the void with TV series. I love the idea of sitting down and committing yourself for that 2.5 hours. That has become far more of a special thing for me. Whereas before, I might have like chucked on a film to just whatever, and I didn't really care whether I finished it or not. Like, and that's how I would sometimes feel kind of like empty space. Like if I was, I don't know, doing the dishes or something, I'd just chuck on a bad movie and I'd watch like 45 minutes of it. And then like next time I was doing something like benign, I'll just chuck that on in the background. Whereas now I can check on TV shows to fill up some of those voids. But a movie, I will actually think about, what do I want to spend my time on? It's kind of to what you said, Ben. Like if I've got 2.5 hours, and I watched Sicario the other day with my fiance, and that for me was a really awesome thing because I specifically said, all right, we're going to like sit down and we're going to watch this film.
Yeah. Well, why don't you go, Benny? You got something to say.
Yeah, to runtime specifically, I think I am definitely intimidated by long movies. If it's going to a cinema to watch a film, I generally am not too fussed. As you said, the right movie feels like it's as long as it's meant to be. But if I'm at home chucking on a movie, if it's like over 2 hours, especially if it's well over 2 hours, I'm probably just not going to do it, which is a damn shame.
It's interesting you make that choice between the cinema and the...
Yeah, well,
the
in the cinema,
home
you know,
viewing.
that's my sacred place. That's the church. I'm
You've
just
also
happy to
made
sit there all day.
the effort to go outside of your house. You're
done the
like
full
kind
commitment.
Yeah, you're locked in this room. Not locked, but
You're pinned down.
yeah, exactly.
My standards for how I live my life are so low that when I go out and leave the house, I'm like, I'm doing something today. If I'm sitting at home on the couch for 2.5 hours, I'm like, I'm wasting my life.
Yeah, but no, I get what you mean, right? Like you've made a larger effort to go out to the cinema, so it doesn't seem like such a, you know.
So that 2 hours is definitely your threshold? Because I just have this mental barrier sometimes at home with like this week I didn't watch anything. Like I'm sometimes so busy and so many different things going on that I'm just like,
Yeah, me too.
I can't be fucked watching a movie right now.
Yeah.
You know, but when the time is right, you know, as you said, kind of like the commitment, I'm sitting down and I'm going to be fully in the zone. Like when I'm on the couch watching a movie, I'm not browsing my phone and on Instagram and doing anything. Like I'm locked in, really trying to utilize my time.
And that's how I watch, like, you know, we joke about it, but I do watch quite a bit of series, but that's how I do that. That's why I do that. It's like, it's just empty time where I'm like, if I'm on the bus or if I'm, you know, cooking
Taking
or
a
waiting
crap.
for something else. Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like it's such small increments that I can just kind of fit that content in.
With no toilet roll either, right?
No, I'm stocked up, man. I'm as
You're
rich
one
as
of
they come.
those. You're one of those.
No, I was really
You're
lucky.
one of those.
I haven't fed those particular flames yet, but it's coming very close. And there's a personal thing where I don't want to engage in that because I'm not going to be one of those people. For anyone that's wondering, particularly in America, Australia has lost its mind in the last week because of the coronavirus.
The Western world has.
Is this toilet paper thing?
It's
so
everywhere.
too specific
feel like
to
it was
us?
more.
It's one of my clients to me. Listen, I haven't looked this up. One of my clients told me that UK and US, all the Western world, losing their fucking marbles. Toilet rolls, sanitizer, soap, gone.
There is
Meagering, I can also tell you, is completely missing
literally
from the
there's
shelves.
like no logic
Shit.
to this. What I mean, why toilet paper? Why these are like people that are
We all need to wipe our butts, Connor.
these are people that have heard on the peripheries about like preppers and thought I can do that and have just gone and bought a couple of bags of toilet paper, maybe some apparently there was one guy going out the shop the other day, my dad was telling me, who had a pallet, 6 bags, big bags,
24 packs.
big bags of flour. He's like, unless you're a bakery, what the fuck are you doing? What are you preparing for? It was just ridiculous. Just the panic that people are going out and buying some of this shit is just. This is a very big tangent, but
You know, having one guy who probably works for a toilet paper company said it, they're going to run out of toilet paper when it hits.
they specifically
Did
said
you see the
opposite.
Kleenex? Did you see the Kleenex Facebook post?
Mm.
It's literally this dude in this warehouse with the tallest shelves you've ever seen, like those IKEA shelves, just filled with toilet paper. And it's like, don't worry, everyone, we have a shitload of this stuff, and we've doubled our quantities of manufacturing.
God, so dumb.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
Makes me very sad for humanity when this kind of shit happens.
Well, George, you got your wish. We talked about the coronavirus
Yeah,
for you.
boy, that's what it's all about.
Twice in an episode. Look at you, George.
Look at that.
You're really
That's all I
making it
wanted.
happen.
That's all I wanted. Thanks for checking this episode out, guys. We'd love to hear from you. So as I said, hit us up with your question for next week, and we'll be back. I can't wait. Hopefully, there's a review next week. I always say to myself, check the schedule so you know what's coming out next week, so you can have a little hook at the end. But I don't, and this is the part where I stall.
Yeah, if you
and
waffle on
Connor's
for at least
looking,
another 20
and
seconds.
he's taken too long.
I'm not bothering.
So we've missed the boat there.
No, you haven't. No, you
It's
haven't.
exciting. It's a mystery.
Connor,
Just give me
Come
2
on,
seconds, you
come
son
on.
of a bitch.
have you got it up?
Yeah.
You got the spreadsheet up.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's-
so
this
what
is-
is coming out at the?
What are we doing next? It's Bloodshot.
Oh,
Ooh.
Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
Vin Diesel.
What a hook. We nailed it.
That was worth the wait.
Really wasn't. See you next week, Connor.
Catch you, bud.
See you, man.
Bye, everyone.
everybody.